Sigmar, Myrmidia, Valaya, Tar, and that pagan horror the elf worships.
Lilith.
Whatever. They will hear and grant what aid they are able.
Greetings and welcome, I'm Ash, and today I would like to talk to you about Vermintide 2's upcoming free expansion, Chaos Wastes. As you might imagine from the name alone, Chaos Wastes will have you brave the corrupted Northlands in search of ancient and supremely powerful artifacts, if they even exist. Given how reality tends to take a back seat whenever the Chaos Gods are involved, it should also come as little surprise that these expeditions into Chaos Wastes will have you venture across a variety of strange and surreal lands, consort with whatever benevolent gods will actually listen to you, and naturally explode thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rats and Chaos cultists. The way the new expedition game mode works is very simple. You start with an unfinished map of the Chaos Wastes, detailing some of the immediate threats you'll encounter and what sort of benefits you'll receive should you manage to best them. After a brief round of voting, you and your team will then select one of the paths and get sent into what is essentially a mini Vermintide 2 adventure. Once you complete it, you'll be granted the aforementioned prizes and then do another round of voting to decide on which path to take next. Naturally, things do get a bit more complicated as certain areas will be harder than others, but also offer much greater rewards. This goes doubly so for areas that are under the gaze of a specific Chaos God, as these will have considerable negative modifiers you'll need to contend with. For example, Khorne will either make certain enemies explode shortly after death, or summon fast-moving blood tornadoes, because of course they're made of blood, to disrupt your team. The deadliest of these modifiers I ran into was the one where Tzeentch spawned numerous crystalline eggs throughout the level. Eggs that would spawn a very, very angry boss if left unchecked. Unfortunately for you, there is no way to know when the eggs will become active, so at some point during the level, you'll just get a warning that you have about a minute to push through wave after wave of Norsemen in order to prevent what is almost surely gonna be a catastrophe. It is quite stressful to be sure, but also a nice way to occasionally mix up the usual flow of a level. Speaking of which, expeditions also make things a bit more interesting by essentially stripping away old gear from you and leaving you with only the very basics. In order to power up, you'll need to scour the levels and pick up as many Pilgrim's coins as you can, since this will be your main currency throughout the Chaos Wastes. And don't worry about any sort of ninja looting, as the coins are given to everyone equally. These coins can then be used in either shrines on the world map that essentially function as shops, or in the numerous altars you'll find throughout the levels. Both of these will give you the ability to either slightly upgrade your current weapon or purchase a random weapon of a much higher quality, or, more excitingly, buy some additional talents. These talents can range from familiar things like class-specific traits you haven't picked up to ultra-powerful effects like an enchantment that makes you go berserk whenever you score multiple headshots in a row. You can also activate special challenge chests found throughout the levels in order to fight a boss and their entourage, with the end reward being a choice between 3 talents. However, even if you hit every single chest you find, the sheer amount of upgrades and the fact that your characters reset between each expedition means that you will have to think on the fly and try to create builds that might be a bit outside your usual comfort zone. After all, this is a roguelite mode, so randomness is the name of the game. Since one of my favorite things in a roguelike game is concocting a build that uses a bunch of strange interactions to create something that is just monstrously overpowered, I am pleased to report that despite all the randomness, I have managed to achieve this a few times during my travels throughout the Chaos Wastes. My favorite of these builds revolves around a talent that lets me duplicate a random item whenever I use my ultimate. A talent that reduces my ultimate cooldown whenever I avoid damage, and a talent that lets me recharge my ultimate whenever I burn an enemy as Sienna, all topped off with a very humble lifesteal potion. The end result, as you might imagine, was so much carnage that even Khorne would flinch. Basically, I would use my ultimate to burn down a few dozen rats, chug a lifesteal potion which would essentially render me invincible thanks to the constant burn damage, and then I would just wildly spam my abilities in order to rack up even more fire damage and refresh my ultimate as quickly as possible. Then once that was done, I'd explode some more rats, chug some more potions, and basically just bulldoze my way through anything Chaos Waste could throw at me. It was ridiculous, it was horribly unfair for the poor ratties, and honestly, I loved every second of it. Naturally, you can't expect every single run to go this swimmingly. In fact, expect quite a difficulty spike compared to normal Vermintide 2, as some of the later levels can have nearly endless swarms of rats thrown at you, more so than even the notorious pre-nerf version of Engines of War. While I personally consider this to be a positive thing, especially since the increased difficulty is accompanied by increased player power, there is one major problem. You won't be able to do higher difficulties with bots. They are simply ill-equipped to deal with the endless stream of enemies that will surround them on all sides, but even if they do manage to survive, they'll likely run face first into an exploding skull during Khorne-influenced events and just die immediately anyway. So if you're planning to make expeditions your focus, I'd highly recommend doing so alongside friends, or at the very least random players you find online. But if you truly want to channel your inner Kerillian and do things completely on your own, veteran or champion difficulty is probably what you should stick to. This will still give you a nice challenge, as you'll need to do most of the work yourself, but without some of the irritation that comes with having to rescue the bots time and time again. That said, chasing the bots around wasn't all in vain, however, as it did give me ample opportunity to explore the 15 new levels. While none of them are as big as the stuff you'll see in the standard Vermintide 2 campaign, they are all well crafted and full of fun little details. My personal favorite is the Chaos Twisted version of a snowy Norsca level where the mountains look like they've been smashed together, while the Chaos raiding ships are littered throughout the landscape as if some giant child had just grown tired of playing with them and thus simply chucked them away. So, while they might not be quote-unquote proper maps, they are still fun to run around in and provide a nice bit of variety. Each of these maps will take you between 10 and 20 minutes to finish, more or less depending on your difficulty setting, with each expedition usually having you visit 3 to 4 levels before the finale. All in all, each expedition took me about an hour to complete, which, while significantly more than a standard Vermintide 2 map, still felt quite good as the challenge ramped up nicely as I went from level to level. What I didn't find quite as enticing were the rewards. After struggling for an hour and barely inching my way to victory, I was rewarded with 2 Emperor-grade chests and a pat on the back. I mean, while it is certainly better than a gutter runner to the face, I can't help but feel like this is a missed opportunity. The beautiful weave weapons are already created and present in game, so why not repurpose those and give expeditions a bit of extra flair? However, I have only had access to a preview build and the in-game shop was closed throughout all of it. As such, I cannot with 100% certainty say that there will be no non-portrait cosmetic rewards present in Chaos Wastes. So for now, take all of this with a grain of salt, though don't be too surprised if it ends up being correct. Fatshark sadly has a bit of a habit with skimping out on shiny rewards when it comes to new content. Besides the free Chaos Waste expansion, April 20th will also bring with it a brand new weapons DLC, Forgotten Relics. As is tradition, there will be 5 weapons in total to play around with each one reserved for one of the heroes. Now, Bardin is getting the mighty Trollhammer Torpedo, which is about as obscenely powerful as it looks. It deals a great deal of impact damage, its explosions decimate everything in the blast zone, and it looks pretty snazzy to boot. The only downside is that it has very, very limited ammo, so make sure you're actually using it to hunt trolls rather than farm kills on clan rats. When it comes to Kerillian, she's getting the Moonfire Bow, which doesn't use standard ammunition, but rather energy that regenerates when you're not shooting. The Moonfire Bow deals a considerable amount of damage on direct hits, though the obvious draw is the fact that it also sets the target and everything around them on fire. A nice alternative to the Hagbane bow and pretty good fun to use, especially on the Waystalker since you can double your shots. Sienna is getting the Coruscation Staff, which I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce, but what I do know is that it deals a great deal of fire damage in a large circle and also leaves behind a patch of burning ground for a long period of time. It essentially functions as an alternative to the Conflagration Staff that trades raw damage for area denial and damage over time potential. It is a little bit tricky to use, but once you figure out how to create an impromptu choke point, its usefulness really starts to shine. Saltspire is getting the Griffinfoot pistols, which are honestly one of the most ridiculous weapons I've ever seen in my life. They are essentially a bandolier of free-barreled shotguns that can wreak havoc to anything unarmored in front of you. And yes, this does also include your allies, so you might want to watch out where you shoot. Or, don't. Kruber is getting a spear and shield combo, which is honestly a bit disappointing, because it is exactly what it sounds like. You have a pokey stick and you go and poke people with it. It is a highly useful weapon, especially since you can poke while holding up your block by using alt-fire, but it is nowhere near as exciting as a Trollhammer torpedo or a staff that literally sets everything on fire. So as far as I'm concerned, this is an unfortunate miss in an otherwise awesome pack of weapons. After playing it religiously for the past few days, I have to say I am more than pleased with the Chaos Wastes. Even if you ignore the paid DLC and focus purely on the free stuff, there is still enough interesting new ideas present to make Vermintide 2 feel fresh and exciting once again, even for an old veteran like me. So if Fatshark can keep updating the expeditions with new content and mutators, ideally alongside some proper rewards as well, I can definitely see expeditions becoming the seasonal game modes we've tried so hard at, and failed so hard at, being. But even if this is all we get, it is still a good time and well worth the low price of, well, entirely free. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please do let me know. If you would like to see more, make sure to subscribe, hit the stupid bell, pet your dog, and do whatever other nonsense you gotta do these days. Thank you again for watching, and I do hope you have a nice day.